So, hi, my name is Anna, and today I have read 4 historical fiction set in the 20th century. And like the last video, I have already read these books, but I'm gonna tell a bit of my expectations and what I thought about the book before I read them. And then I will make a review. The first book was City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I knew it was. I read the synopsis and it's just like glamour in the glamour in the 40s, New York, and friendships. And I was like, you know what? I haven't been a fan of your previous non-fiction works, Eat, Pray, Love, and is it Big Magic? Yes, I think it's Big Magic. Eat, Pray, Love, 3 stars, wasn't too impressed, didn't blow my mind. Big Magic, pretty good for like talking about inspiration and stuff. A bit weird, but overall an okay book. But I hadn't read any actual fiction from her, so this is my first. This was my first fiction story by her, and I actually even bought this one. Usually I get my books from second-hand stores, but I was like, I know I'm gonna love this, so let's get it. So I had really high expectations. I thought like really strong 4 to 5 stars, like high expectations. The next book is The Paris Wife by Paula McLean. I knew this one was about Hemingway and his first wife and kind of their life in Paris during the 1920s, and I think it's gonna be great. And I haven't seen any reviews or anything, but I think it's gonna be good. The next one was The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and what I knew going in is that it's kind of based on a true story, and it's not her relatives or anything, it's that she met a man that is his story, and he told his story to her, and then she wrote it down. So I expect sadness, I expect crying. I cry very easily, so I will probably bawl in my eyes after this. And I'm not super fan of sad stories that I knew I'm gonna cry going into it, so we will see. But I think it will be a powerful but sad story. The next one is The Help by Catherine Stockett. This book I already knew was a bit controversial. It's written by a white woman and it's talking a lot about racism in the 1960s, right? Yes, 1960s in the South in the US. So I knew it has some controversy going on around it, but I'm also very interested because this is one of the most read books ever on like Goodreads. It has like millions of ratings. So I did really feel like I want to read it in my lifetime because of it, because it's so kind of beloved and so widely read. But I know it's around like the help, the maids in the 60s, and it deals with racism. That's what I knew going into this story, and I didn't think I would love it. I didn't think I would hate it. Well, it didn't exactly go as I planned. Actually, quite the opposite. I absolutely hated this book. I honestly did not see that coming. I really thought amazing. Like when I buy a book brand new, I'm like, I'm gonna love this book. I'm gonna keep this book forever. Like that's why I buy them brand new, kind of. But seriously, what is this? Like, I don't understand. Like, I felt like I was promised like the 40s glamour, elegance, like, because like it's in the back, like glamour is the thing, like it's 40s and they're doing the town, and then stuff happens, and I thought it sounded amazing. But quickly we find out that this entire book, 500 pages, is a letter. Like, this entire book is one letter to a person. And it kind of sets up the mystery. Like, this is an old woman writing back about her life to someone that she doesn't really know. And it sets up a mystery. Like, who is this person? And this premise was so weird. Like, you write an entire novel to this person you don't even know, and like, she goes into details, like sex details, in great detail, to this woman she don't even know. Why would you do that? I don't understand. Like, and like 500-page letter? What is that? So like, from the beginning, like, the premise was weird. But I was still thinking, okay, a bit weird, but maybe not the entire book is a letter, which it was. And the thing is that the glamour that you were promised and the friendship in the 40s, only half the book is set in the 40s. Who would have known? So already, like, it felt like you were promised one thing and you got something else. And I didn't really understand what she was doing. I understand that kind of the main character is not supposed to be super likable. Like, I'm all down for like morally grey and unlikable characters. Like, no problem. But I didn't understand what she was doing, like, the entire time. Like, sure, party away, sleep with 50 guys, but I didn't understand, like, you didn't seem to enjoy yourself, like, whatsoever. And you didn't seem to know, like, what you were doing, which was, I guess, a bit central theme, like, you know, finding yourself. And then she was doing partying, but it didn't feel like she was enjoying any of it at all. And I don't understand, like, anything of what she really was doing. And then, of course, everything ended in like this big thing going on, and then it was like going forward. And the thing is that, like, in the first part of the book, there's not much of a plot going on. It's just like randomly partying, and not much else is going on that she doesn't seem to even enjoy. And the friendship I was promising, not really there at all. Which was even weirder. I felt like everything you were kind of promising me was not what actually happened in the book. Like, it was like surface level what's going on, but not really. I know, it's a bit hard to explain without spoiling too much. And it felt like it just all building up to kind of what happened midway. And it's like, it was like a build up of 250 pages for something that wasn't even that entertaining. But like, if I should give, because I was trying to think about, like, why did people like this? I think that a lot is like the language, and I think that's why people like this book. It's a lot about the language. But it's not great enough to build an entire 500-page novel on. You need something more. So, like, in the end, I was just greatly disappointed. Promised one thing, glamour, sex, friendship. Didn't get. Weird premise? Like, why would you make this a giant letter? I don't get it. It wasn't needed. It really, really wasn't needed. And you know, the mystery? It was so garbage. Like, why would you do that? That was the weirdest thing ever. Like, who this person was? I was just like, what? Like, why would you do that? This doesn't make sense. Seriously, this book is gonna be the greatest disappointment of this year. Like, seriously. I don't get it. And I don't really recommend this one to anyone. Like, I know some people enjoyed it, but I don't, and it felt like you have to more overlook things then. And like I said, I think it's a lot of language thing. That's my theory, and why that is kind, like why people like it. But I say don't read it. I give it a 2-star, but it's kind of is a 1-star. I do kind of want to burn it. Like super big disappointment all over the place. I'm still upset 3 months after reading it. Like seriously, I'm still mad. Like, what was this book? Weirdest thing ever. Well, another big disappointment of the year is definitely this book. I don't really understand this book. Because, you know, everything is kind of about your relationship. And I didn't get it. Like, this is kind of is much harder, I guess, when it's based on real persons. You have to take some, you know, freedoms when you're writing and try to base as much as possible in reality. But I was a bit like, why are they together now again? Even if I think that if I should be fair against this book, I think a lot is based on language. And I don't think it translated so well. I read it in Swedish, and it's originally written in English. And I felt like a lot was on the language, trying to make it beautiful and poetic. And it really didn't translate so well. I would say that maybe I would have liked it more if I read it in English. But I'm not so sure, because in the beginning not much was going on. And then not much more was going on. And then I DNF'd it. I could almost drag myself halfway through this book. I really couldn't drag myself through more. And like, the only thing I guess I can say in defense it maybe it doesn't translate well. But it also is a bit like, you don't make me feel anything. Maybe it is the language then, but I didn't understand why they were together, because like, I don't want to spoil too much, but like, it is like, 1920s, and she is 29, or if I remember correctly, she's like 29 and he was 21. There's kind of big age gap going on, which is probably not so usual like around this time period. And I didn't really understand why they were a couple to begin with. Like, I didn't really care for any of them. And it felt a lot like you kind of needed, like, you have to enjoy it. You kind of wanted to read about Hemingway specifically and his life in Paris during this time, because it's a lot of name dropping of famous, at least authors at the time. I don't know if anyone else was famous for something else, but this like writer artist life in the 1920s. I read one book of his, but I'm not a super fan or anything. So I don't know if this is written for fans of Hemingway, because maybe that's who it's for, or maybe it's super much about the language and that's why it was horrible in translation. I'm not sure, because like in the end I was mostly bored because I didn't care about either of them. And I did read the ending, and I kind of felt that it was a glamorization of him and about kind of crappy relationships all over the place. And if something I really dislike in books is trying to romanticize crap relationships, like crap relationships where someone is kind of garbage to the other person, I don't feel like we need to romanticize it. Like, and that's why I felt he was kind of garbage and she was clueless to it. And maybe it was just that it was the thought to like be very realistic, maybe. but I still could have been without romanticization that was coming with it. Like, the only people I would say, like, if I would recommend it, I would say if you're super into like beautiful poetic language and are super into Hemingway, like, by all means give it a shot. But like, overall I would say it was kind of bad. It was definitely a 1 star for me. I really have been unlucky with my reads. So unlucky. At least I didn't buy that one brand new. Like this book, I would say I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book. Because it is based on a story that is very powerful and very... It's in the background, it is a love story. And it did make me cry a lot at the end. And like, the base story is beautiful and powerful. But the thing is, and I think a lot of people have complained about, is the language is very direct. It's a lot of like, this, this, this. It's not very poetic. It's very simple, like, and you can read it very easily. It goes very quick to read it. Like, you do this, that happens, that happens, that happens. It's not like very complicated language, which a lot of people didn't like. But I also think that the easiness of the language and very kind of direct, not a lot of descriptions, also makes it very easy to read, because it's like Dear Auschwitz is a horrible story, and it makes you can distance yourself a bit to the story in a way that you can't if it's a lot of descriptions of how, you know, awful everything is. It's like telling that it's awful, but it doesn't show so much, which I also think maybe is why it's like a bestseller, and a lot of people who maybe don't read so much can enjoy it a lot more, can enjoy it very easily. Like, I'm just speculating, but I think maybe that can be why, because, which I kind of noticed, that you could distance yourself a bit from the story and not get as invested, which I would think would be kind of hard because of the setting. And I noticed this book has gotten a lot of criticism because it doesn't really accurately portray being in Auschwitz and like in any concentration camp, really. So if you would want a more authentic story, it exists a lot of better books for it. So like, if you want authenticism, this is not it, not at all. But it is a beautiful story in the background, and I could recommend it for people who would want more surface level of all of this than more of a deep dive into the horrible things that was going on during the Holocaust, because it is a powerful story for the man who told the woman the story. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about this book. Like, overall I think it's a powerful story. Like, executioner wise, it's not really a masterpiece for writing, but I still can recommend it. But you should know going into this, it's not from someone who has been in Auschwitz. There exists a lot of other stories. Like, for example, Imre Kertész, he is a Hungarian writer who has been to a concentration camps himself, and he's wrote a lot of stories based on his own experiences. For an example, Faithlessness, which I read, which I can recommend, which is about his own experiences. It exists other books too, but that's one I have read. Like I said, it's a lot of mixed feelings about this book. At least I didn't hate it. So this book, I really understand the criticism, which is that kind of that almost, it's a bit like To Kill a Mockingbird, for an example, has kind of the same discussion going on. Why is it always kind of white people, when they write about racism from this point of view of a white woman or child, they get popular, but when black people tell their own stories, they don't get as widely spread and read, which is a very fair criticism. But I try to not to kind of separate that discussion from the book, because like in a vacuum I don't think this book is problematic, and I haven't seen anyone who said that something that's going on in the book is problematic or racist. It's more like the entire thing around it has been discussed around it, what I've seen. So I want to try to be fair to the book and kind of separate that discussion from the book when I was reading it. And as a book on its own, I thought it was pretty good. I didn't blow my mind, but I can see why people like it. It's kind of easily read, you can very easily read it, it goes quick. Even if it's a bit thicker, on the thicker side, you read it fairly quickly, I would say. And it's a powerful story of course, standing up for what you think is right without, you know, from one perspective, you know, which I think is why people like it. I did enjoy the story, but it didn't blow my mind in any way, and I do think that the criticism is fair, like overall, but like book-wise, I think this is, I wouldn't say I understand why it's one of the most read books ever. I don't really think it was that amazing in any capacity, but maybe it's also because I'm not American. Maybe it's a bit different reading this story, because if you think about it, it's in the 1960s. It's now it is 60 years ago, and of course it's kind of weird, kind of hard to realize that like this kind of segregation that was going on, like people are still alive that lived through it. It's kind of weird, but I guess it feels more distant from me because it's not, because it didn't happen in Sweden, not in this level. Of course it's racism in Sweden, but not this kind of level wasn't going on, because basically we're all white 60 years ago, because basically we were a super white country 60 years ago. So mixed feelings. I didn't think anything inherently wrong with this story, and like as a story on its own, I kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, I think the criticism it has received is fair. If you look to the grander scheme of book publishing today, and also what we as readers actually take our time to read. I guess that's everything I have to say about it. I hope I make sense. Probably not. Guess that's it. See ya.